It was an arranged marriage. I ended up with a mute wife that nobody else wanted. 3 months into our marriage, she'd spend every single day baring her claws and snarling at me. I honestly thought she just had a nasty temper, until I finally learned sign language. I realized she was cursing me out in a different way every day. Is your brain filled with cement? You should really donate your face to science, and I hope you never have toilet paper when you're taking a dump. I looked right at her and calmly signed back to her. Are you done? Do you have any new ones? She froze for 3 seconds, then her hands started moving twice as fast. My name is Fang Yuan. I'm 28 years old. The sole heir to the Fang Group. Sounds pretty respectable, right? But this title of sole heir comes with strings attached. The condition was that I marry the mute daughter of the Bai family. My grandfather, Ji Yuzhongneng, is 82 this year. The old man doesn't have many talents, but he sure knows how to manipulate his grandson. That day, he dragged me into his study. He was brewing that expensive tea of his, the kind that costs 20,000 per 50 grams, and slowly dropped this line. Fang Yuan, that girl from the Bai family. You need to marry her. I was looking over the quarterly report at the time. I didn't even look up. Which Bai family? Your Uncle Bai's daughter, Bai Ningbing. Never heard of her. Never heard of the mute girl from the Bai family? My pen stopped moving. I looked up at him. He was holding his teacup, blowing on the steam without even glancing at me. That's the one. I put down my pen, leaned back in my chair, and said, Grandpa, are we lacking something? Money? Staff? Business? Do we really have to resort to an arranged marriage? The old man took a sip of tea. What we're lacking is virtue. You're 28 already, and you've never had a serious relationship. I think you're lacking common sense. I'm busy with work. Busy? Busy playing video games? Last Wednesday at 11 at night, you were still online, screaming at someone in a chat. You think I don't know? I opened my mouth, but couldn't get a word out. This old man must have installed spyware on my computer. The Bai family and ours go way back. That girl has had a hard life. She's been deaf since birth and never learned how to talk. Her own relatives treat her like she's a nuisance. It breaks my heart. The old man set down his cup, his tone turning serious. If you don't marry her, then as for the company, don't you dare worry about it anymore. I took a deep breath. This is forced marriage. Exactly. He nodded, looking completely unbothered. What's wrong? You gonna call the Consumer Protection Hotline and file a complaint against me? 3 days later, I was standing outside the civil registry office in a suit. Bai Ningbing was standing right in front of me. To be honest, when I saw her for the first time, I was actually a little surprised. She wasn't at all the sickly, timid person I had imagined. She was wearing a white dress, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. She was actually quite pretty. Her features were delicate, with a sharp chin and clear eyes. Her skin was so fair it practically glowed, and she just stood there quietly. With her lashes lowered, she kept twisting the hem of her dress with her fingers. Her mother stood beside her, eyes red and puffy. She tugged at my sleeve and whispered, Fang Yuan. Ningbing is such a sweet, good-natured girl. It's just that she can't speak, so please, be patient with her. Bai Ningbing glanced at her mother, and at the time, I thought she was feeling touched. But later, after I learned sign language, I finally understood. That look she gave her mother back then, if you translate it, it was basically, Mom, can you stop playing the victim? You're embarrassing me, but I didn't know that then. I just thought she was quiet, obedient, and easy to push around. How naive, how incredibly ignorant I was. After getting our marriage certificate, we went straight to our new place. The apartment was in the city center, 180 square meters. I'd arranged the renovations beforehand. The master bedroom was for her. I'd sleep in the second bedroom. We'd keep to our own sides. I explained the arrangement to her, but since she couldn't hear me, I typed it out on my phone for her to see. She looked at the screen, then looked at me, and walked straight into the master bedroom. She did a quick inspection and then tossed my pillow out of the room. It hit the hallway floor with a loud thud. I was stunned for a second. She walked out of the room, pointed at the sofa in the living room, making her meaning crystal clear. You're sleeping there. I said the second bedroom, I insisted, pointing to the room next door. She shook her head and pointed at the sofa again. Then she put her hands on her hips, giving me that. You got a problem with that? Look. I looked at the sofa, then back at her and let it go. It was the first day. I didn't want to argue with her. That night, I lay on the sofa, covered by a thin blanket, staring at the ceiling and thinking. Maybe she's just nervous. After all, it's her first time living with a strange man. It's perfectly normal for her to be on guard. I'm a reasonable guy. I'll give her some time. That thin blanket? She had brought it out from the bedroom and thrown it at me, or to be accurate, slammed it into my face. Back then, I actually thought it was sweet. At least she knew to bring me a blanket. It showed she wasn't a bad person, right? Hey, that was the most ridiculous judgment I, Fang Yuan, have ever made in my life, without exception. 3 months into the marriage, I took a moment to reflect on my dynamic with Bai Ningbing. It could generally be divided into 3 stages. The first stage, she acts it out, I guess. Phase 2, she acts it out. I take wild guesses. Phase 3, She acts it out. I give up guessing. The contrast between this woman's desire to express herself and the fact that she can't speak is incredibly intense. Every morning at 6:30, she comes out of the team room right on time, then stands in front of the sofa facing me. I've been sleeping on that sofa for 3 months, staring at me. If I'm not awake, she kicks the leg of the sofa. The second I open my sleepy eyes, she starts gesturing. Her hands move like lightning, her expressions are vivid, and every now and then she even rolls her eyes. I have no idea what she's saying, but I can read a few key messages from her facial expressions. First, she finds me disgusting. Second, she finds me absolutely repulsive. Third, she finds me so repulsive she wishes she could shove me back into her mother-in-law's womb to be reborn. Every time, I just stare at her blankly while she finishes her tantrum. Then she lets out a huff. Yeah, even though she can't talk, she can still make some simple sounds. She slams the door and goes back to the kitchen. 10 minutes later, she brings out breakfast. Bring out isn't exactly the right word. It's more like slams. She bangs the plates onto the dining table and shoves the bowl of porridge in front of me with a asterisk clang. The porridge sloshes out and burns my hand. I wipe my hand and say, thanks. She gestures a whole lot more. I assume she's saying you're welcome. But judging by her expression, that's probably not it. During those days, my take on her could be summed up in 2 words. Bad temper. Maybe because she's disabled, she's been insecure since she was a kid. So she uses a short temper to armor herself. That's what I thought, and I felt I was being pretty empathetic. Until Zhao Lei showed up. Zhao Lei is my childhood buddy, the kind of guy the first grew up wearing the same pair of pants with. He was on my sofa, munching through half a pound of sunflower seeds, watching Bai Ningbing in the kitchen frantically gesturing at me while she chopped vegetables. His hand stopped mid-munch. Hey brother. Is your wife cursing you out? I took a sip of water. No way. She can't talk. She's probably just trying to tell me something. You sure? Look at her face. I turned to look. Bai Ningbing was holding a kitchen knife, while gesturing with her other hand. The expression on her face could be described in 4 words. Pure murderous intent. She might be saying the knife is dull, I said. Zhao Lei stared at me for 5 seconds. He looked at me like I was a total idiot. You know, this blind trust of yours in a TV show, you wouldn't last 3 episodes. Are you leaving or not? If you're not going, go help me do the dishes. When he left, while Bai Ningbing wasn't looking, he placed a book on the shoe rack. Practical Sign Language Tutorial. There was even a sticky note on the cover that said, Hey buddy, you should learn sign language. That way, you can at least know why you're dying. I didn't think much of it at the time, and just tossed the book in the study, burying it under a pile of unread management textbooks. But I never imagined that 2 weeks later, I'd be digging it out myself. It all started with a business deal. My company was partnering with a firm that makes special education equipment, and their founder was a deaf entrepreneur. All our communication had to go through a sign language interpreter. I couldn't just drag an interpreter to every single meeting. It was way too inefficient. So, I started learning. I began with the basics. Hello. Thank you. I'm sorry. Eat, drink, sleep. I picked it up pretty fast. After all, I've had a great memory since I was a kid. Every night, after Bai Ningbing went into her bedroom and shut the door, I'd sit in the living room, practicing the gestures one by one using the book and tutorial videos. One night, I was really focused on my practice, when the bedroom door suddenly opened. Bai Ningbing came out in her pajamas to get some water. She saw me making the gestures, and she nearly dropped the glass she was holding. I quickly hid the book under the sofa cushion. It's nothing, just exercising my finger dexterity. She gave me a suspicious look, then turned and headed back to the bedroom. Right before the door closed, I caught a slight twitch at the corner of her mouth. At the time, I thought I was just imagining things. I only realized later that the curve of her lips basically translated to, oh, you're done for. Another 2 weeks went by, and my sign language was around an intermediate level. I could basically understand everyday conversations. That morning, as usual, Bai Ningbing came over to kick the sofa and wake me up. I kept my eyes closed, too lazy to move. She started gesturing again. Usually, I just treated it like background noise. But this time, I actually understood. She was signing, get up. You lazy pig, the sun is already way up. Your snoring last night was so loud it scared the neighbor's dog into crying. I froze on the sofa, my eyes snapping open. She didn't notice the look on my face, and kept signing, breakfast is ready. If you don't get up now, I'm tossing it out. You can deal with the guilt of wasting food yourself. I don't feel bad for you anyway. After she finished signing, she rolled her eyes as usual and walked away. I lay there on the sofa, my mind completely blank. And then, I started to look back on the last 3 months. All those gestures she made every single morning, the ones I thought were good morning. The ones I thought meant time to get up, the ones I thought were it's a nice day today. They were all insults. Every single one of them. Every last one, without exception. I slowly sat up, resting my hands on my knees. My mind started racing back to last Tuesday. She did some signs, and I thought she was just telling me it was cold out and I should wear something warmer. In reality, she was saying my taste in shirts was just as pathetic as I am, utterly speechless. The Friday before that, my mom came over to visit. Bai Ningbing sat there being perfectly sweet, smiling quietly the whole time, but at one point, she threw a whole string of hand signs at me. At the time, I honestly thought she was telling me how delicious mom's cooking was. Nope. What she actually said was, the smell of your mom's perfume is strong enough to choke every cockroach within a 50-meter radius. Are you nose blind or something? And that night, right before bed, she stood at the bedroom door. She moved her hands slowly and smoothly, looking totally calm. Her motions were so graceful, I thought she was just saying good night. She was actually saying, I hope you dream that you show up to your math exam without a pen. That you mess up your name on the Chinese exam, and on the English test, you pick C for every answer, and get them all wrong. I just sat there on the couch, replaying it all in my head for a solid 10 minutes. Every time I recalled a memory, my temple started throbbing. After 10 minutes, I stood up. I walked into the study, dug out that sign language textbook. I flipped to the advanced section, sat down, and started studying. Zhao Lei was right. If I'm gonna go down, I need to know why. No, wait, forget going down. Who's actually going to end up in the grave is still up for debate. These 3 battles? Fang Yuan, accept the challenge. To make sure I was ready for a proper fight, I spent a whole week cramming advanced sign language. I studied at work during the day and kept at it when I got home at night. While we were eating lunch, Zhao Lei watched me gesturing wildly at my phone screen. I looked so dead serious, like I was heading into war. He even put his chopsticks down. What are you doing? Learning sign language? I'm gonna find out what on earth my wife has been saying to me every single day. I shot him a look. You really want to know? No kidding. She's been roasting you in a different way every day. Zhao Lei froze for 2 seconds, then burst out laughing. Not just a polite chuckle, but a full-on, table-slapping, hysterical laugh. He nearly snorted his cola out through his nose. Stop gloating. I pointed my chopsticks at him. If it wasn't for you leaving that book around, I'd still be in the dark. He wiped away his tears. Wait, I just have to ask, 3 months? For 3 solid months, your wife has been roasting you to your face, and you didn't understand a single thing? She's using sign language, not talking. So what? It never crossed your mind to learn it? I thought she was just chatting. Does anyone roll their eyes so far back into their skull while they're just having a casual conversation? I'll admit, when it comes to reading social cues, I definitely have a few technical glitches. But that's not the point. The point is revenge. That week, I mastered every common insult in sign language. Not just the standard ones from the book. I even hit up online forums for the deaf community to learn some creative, grassroots expressions. Things like, your brain capacity has less storage than a flash drive, or the way you walk makes me wonder if your knees were installed backward. What? Your very existence is a major challenge to the theory of natural selection. I've got it all memorized. And on top of that, I've even developed a few original hand gesture combos. For example, you're cooking well, it's technically edible, but it's got a long way to go before it's actually good. Like, replace the chef, long. I practiced that line in front of the mirror at least 20 times. Just to make sure the gestures were fluid and my expression was on point. A week later, I was ready. That morning, my alarm didn't go off. Bai Ningbing showed up right on time to kick the couch. I didn't even open my eyes. I waited for her to start signing. She signaled, get up, you couch-occupying, worthless parasite who doesn't contribute a thing. Do you have any idea that your snoring last night could qualify for a Guinness World Record? She was halfway through, when she noticed I had opened my eyes, and I was smiling. She froze, her hands stuck in mid-air. I sat up slowly and shook out my wrists. Then, I raised both hands, and clearly signed out. Good morning. You've been cursing me out for 3 months now. You need to update your repertoire, Lin Ku. That line yesterday was a repeat from last Thursday. Your professionalism needs some work. The way her expression changed was priceless. The first second, she was confused. The second, her pupils dilated. By the third, she was completely petrified. The air felt like it froze for about 5 seconds. Then her hands started moving, at 3 times her usual speed. Since when did you learn sign language? I leaned back against the couch, and replied in a slow, languid motion, a month ago. But I actually started understanding your insults 2 weeks ago. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I kept signing. So, your brain is just a block of cement? You're an embarrassment to 9 years of compulsory education. I hope every takeout order you get is missing a pair of chopsticks. These all came out of your mouth, right? Her face, at a rate visible to the naked eye, turned red, not from shyness, but from the sheer annoyance of being caught red-handed. Her hands flew into a frenzy. You learned sign language on the sly without telling me. That's called eavesdropping. That's an invasion of privacy. You were cursing me to my face, and you call that privacy? You couldn't understand me back then. Well, I understand you now. That's your problem. If you'd learned sooner, I could have at least insulted you with a bit more technical flair. What kind of logic is that? You're losing an argument and blaming the audience for showing up late? She stomped her foot in a rage. The floor shook a little. Then she put her hands on her hips. Chest heaving, glaring at me. If those eyes could shoot lasers, I would already have 7 or 8 holes burned through me. I stood up, a full head taller than her. I looked down at her and slowly signed. From today on, for every insult you throw at me, I'm hitting you back with 2. Fair is fair. Always ready for a challenge, she squinted her eyes. You think just because you've been learning sign language for a couple of days, you can out-insult me? I've been roasting people for 25 years. Well then, let's see if your 25 years of experience can stand a test today. She took a deep breath, and then, it was on. Her hands were flying. Her expressions were so vivid, and not a single insult was repeated. She went from attacking my looks to my IQ, from my fashion sense to how I sleep. From my eating habits to my life choices. A whole barrage of them. Smooth, fluid, and without a single pause. I have to admit, the woman has a real talent for this. But I didn't back down either. I met every jab with a counter. She trashed my snoring, so I blasted her for leaving the bathroom door open in the middle of the night. She roasted my lack of style, so I called her out for calling herself a health nut while keeping a fridge full of spicy snacks. She insulted my face, calling it an eyesore, and I hit her with one line. Funny how you didn't seem to mind when you married me. Once that landed, it was super effective. Her hands froze in midair. She paused for 2 seconds, then her face turned even redder. She spun around sharply and slammed the kitchen door open with a loud bang. 10 seconds later, the sound of a meat cleaver hitting the cutting board echoed from the kitchen. Bang 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 bang. Just like a machine gun. I sat there quietly, and for some reason, I was in a pretty good mood. Just then, Mrs. Wang, the housekeeper, walked in from the entryway and changed into her slippers. She looked toward the kitchen, then back at me. Mr. Fang, you and your wife are chatting away, aren't you? I nodded. Sign language is truly wonderful. You two are just so sweet together, Mrs. Wang said with a grin as she walked past. In the kitchen, the chopping got even more violent. I heard Bai Ningbing let out a short, sharp huff. She was probably saying, "Sweet my foot," but I decided to pretend I didn't understand. And this was only the beginning. Ever since I dropped the act, the daily dynamic between me and Bai Ningbing completely changed. It used to be her dishing it out one-sidedly, with me just taking the hits. Now, it was a two-way street. Courtesy demands reciprocity, right? The morning wake-up routine hadn't changed. She still kicked the sofa, but after the kick, the whole vibe was totally different. On the first day, she signed, "Get up." I signed back, "You kicked the blanket onto the floor again last night." Compared to your teeth grinding in the middle of the night, a blanket on the floor is nothing. She signed, "What does my grinding have to do with you?" I signed, "I could hear it even through the door. Are you sure you still have any teeth left?" Whack, a pillow came flying at me. On the third day, while eating breakfast, she served me a bowl of porridge. I took a sip and signed, "Today's porridge is a little better than yesterday's." She gestured expressionlessly. "Yesterday, I used double the salt." "On purpose? Why?" "Because you said the fried rice I made the day before wasn't exactly inedible." That was a compliment. That was an insult. Your comprehension skills need an upgrade. Your taste buds need a system reboot. Day 5, I was in the living room looking at documents, and she was sitting on the opposite sofa watching TV. With subtitles on, she suddenly slammed the remote control against the armrest of the sofa. I looked up at her, and she gestured. "This male lead is such an idiot." "Which one?" "The one on TV. And the one on the sofa." I put down my documents. "Do you think you're being very funny?" She nodded vigorously. Day 7, Auntie Wang was cooking in the kitchen, and Bai Ningbing and I were at opposite ends of the dining table. She gestured a long string, and I gestured a long string back. She fired back a quick barrage, and I countered, word for word. Auntie Wang brought out the dishes, watching us silently cursing each other across the dining table. "Oh my, you two are having such a lively chat. What is she saying?" Bai Ningbing gestured 2 words. Auntie Wang couldn't understand, so she looked at me. I didn't change my expression. She said, "The braised pork you made is delicious." Bai Ningbing glared at me, because what she actually gestured was, "Shut up. Tell the truth. I'm starting to enjoy these days of bickering. It's a bit twisted, maybe, but you don't understand that feeling. In a silent world, to have someone you can argue with so intensely, that sense of vivid, steamy confrontation, compared to the last 3 months of information asymmetry, is actually fairer now." She knows I can understand her. She's actually toned down her insults a bit, but only a bit. Because her vocabulary keeps expanding, she's even started inventing new sign language combinations. Some of the usage I've never seen in any textbook. I suspect she invented them herself. If she put the energy she uses for cursing into writing novels, she'd definitely be a top-tier author. Zhao Lei heard about the developments and specifically came over to watch the show. He sat in the corner of the living room, watching Bai Ningbing and me trade insults in sign language for a full half-hour. He was dumbfounded the whole time, and finally, he messaged me on WeChat. "This isn't an argument, you two. This is a silent version stand-up battle." Underneath, he added, "I bet on your sister-in-law to win." I replied with a smiling emoji and then kicked him out of the group chat. But fun aside, I've actually been pondering one thing. Bai Ningbing, despite all the cursing, she's never missed a meal. My shirts are hung neatly on the rack every single day. Once, when I worked overtime until 2 in the morning, the living room lights were still on. There was a plate covered on the dining table, with fried rice wrapped in plastic wrap. Beside it was a sticky note with a stick figure pig head drawn on it. Underneath, it wrote one word: eat. I stared at that pig head for 10 seconds. Then I sat down and ate the fried rice. It tasted really good. She has never said a single nice thing to me, in person or in writing, but there are some things that don't need to be said. No, wait, what am I thinking? Get a grip, Fang Yuan. This woman just spent the morning calling you an evolutionarily incomplete upright walking organism, and now you're starting to think she's got a warm side? You've been insulted into developing Stockholm Syndrome. I gave my face a few slaps. I washed the bowl and went back to the sofa to sleep. The next morning, she came over and kicked the sofa as usual. I opened my eyes as usual, and she gestured. Did you eat the fried rice? I gestured back. I ate it. Was it good? She furrowed her brows. You tell me, Linghe. It was above average. Do you have any idea that I spent 40 minutes making that plate of rice? Then I suggest you work on your efficiency. She grabbed a sofa cushion and hurled it at me. I tilted my head and dodged it. She was so mad she started stomping her feet. But I saw it. The corners of her mouth were curling upward. The curve was tiny, so small that if we weren't just 3 feet apart, I never would have noticed. But I did. My heart skipped a beat. Oh, man, this feeling it isn't right. The turning point happened at the company's mid-year gala. The Fang Group hosts a large banquet every June, inviting partners, suppliers, and investors. It's a massive scale, very grand. As the legal spouse of the Fang family's young master, Bai Ningbing had to attend. This was our first public appearance as a married couple. Before we left, I stood at the bedroom door. I'm actually allowed inside the bedroom sometimes now. I'm limited to 30 seconds, mainly just to grab clothes or wait for her to change. When the door opened, I was looking down at my phone. I looked up, and almost dropped the phone. She was wearing a silver-gray evening gown that showed off her collarbones and neck. Her hair was swept up, and she wore a pair of pearl studs in her ears. She looked like a completely different person from the shrew who usually kicks the sofa in her pajamas. She saw me staring, dazed, and waved a hand in front of my face, gesturing. What are you looking at? Never seen someone in a dress? Well, you've definitely opened my eyes today. Let's go. Don't dawdle. If we hit traffic, it's on you. On the way there, I went over a few things to keep in mind. It's going to be crowded later. If someone greets you, just nod and smile. She rolled her eyes. If someone actually asks me something, it's not my first day out in public. And keep your hand gestures in check when you're cussing people out. What if someone knows sign language? She lifted one hand and elegantly made a gesture. Translated, it basically meant, mind your own business. Once we reached the gala, we were surrounded by a group of people the moment we walked in. Young Master Fang, is this your wife? Oh, my goodness. Sister-in-law is truly beautiful. Fang Dai, you're a lucky man. I heard sister-in-law has trouble speaking? Oh, it's alright, it's alright. We all understand. Bai Ningbing maintained an elegant smile the entire time. Dignified and graceful, proper, a perfect young mistress of a wealthy family. After the crowd dispersed, she turned her head. Just now, every time that bald guy spoke, the overhead light reflected off his head, and it was blinding my eyes. I held back a laugh. He's our biggest supplier, so you can't call him bald? I didn't say it out loud. I was just gesturing to show you. If you don't say it, who would know? I didn't reply because a woman was walking over. Zhang Qiang, the marketing director of the Fang Group. She's 32 and has great business skills. She has a habit of touching my arm when she talks. She walked over with a wine glass. A polite smile. Fang Dai, is this sister-in-law? How beautiful. Then she looked at Bai Ningbing, slowing down her speaking speed. She raised her volume and spoke one word at a time. Hello, sister-in-law. That tone. It was like she was talking to a 3-year-old. I noticed Bai Ningbing's fingers tightened slightly, but she still smiled and nodded. Zhang Qiang turned to me, her hand resting on my arm. Fang Dai, Director John will be making a toast in a bit. I'll go with you. Before I could react, Bai Ningbing's hand blocked Zhang Qiang's hand away. The movement was very natural. She stepped forward and linked her arm through mine. She looked up and smiled at Zhang Qiang again. Dignified, graceful, though she looked like she was gritting her teeth. Zhang Qiang froze, her smile turning a bit stiff. Sister-in-law is really clingy, she added, followed immediately by. But I guess, given sister-in-law's situation, she must be quite dependent on Fang Dai. As soon as those words, situation, came out, the air went quiet for a second. I was about to speak, but Bai Ningbing had already turned her head and started gesturing with her other hand. She was gesturing at me, but her eyes were locked onto Zhang Qiang. Her signs were slow, one word at a time. Make this woman stay away from you. It's not because I'm jealous. It's because her perfume makes me feel sick. Of course, Zhang Qiang couldn't understand sign language, but Bai Ningbing's expression, lips curved in a smile, while her eyes were cold as ice, was clear to anyone. Anyone could tell she wasn't saying anything nice. I looked down and signed back to Bai Ningbing. Got it. Then I turned to Zhang Qiang. Qiang, I'll go over to Director Zhang myself in a bit. You go back to your work. Zhang Qiang's lips twitched, walking away with the wine glass in hand. Bai Ningbing let go of my arm, and I looked down at her. I signed, since when did you get so territorial? She didn't look at me, but signed back a sentence. Her hand movements were so fast, I almost missed it. This arm is mine. No one else is allowed to touch it. It's not because I like you, it's because our marriage certificate says so. I didn't say anything back, but I couldn't help it. The corner of my mouth twitched upward. Once the banquet started, we were seated at the main table, surrounded by company executives and business partners. During the meal, Bai Ningbing sat right at my left. She looked quiet and calm on the surface, but in reality, her left hand was moving under the tablecloth, in small, high-frequency motions that didn't stop the whole time. Chatted with people while reading her sign language out of the corner of my eye. The old guy to your left, his wig is crooked. I raised my glass for a sip. To hide my expression, the fat guy across from you has already eaten 6 shrimp dumplings. His wife hasn't even had one. I nearly choked. The lady in the red dress sitting diagonally across is watching you. If you dare to look back, don't even think about sleeping on the couch tonight. I quickly looked down and focused on my food. The vice president on my right leaned over and patted my shoulder. He lowered his voice and said, Fang He, you and your wife have such a great relationship. You've been signing back and forth the whole meal. Is she telling you she misses you? My chopsticks hovered in mid-air. My mouth twitched for a second. Something like that. She was actually saying she wanted to smack me. Something like that. After the banquet ended, on the way home. It was quiet in the car for 10 minutes. I was driving, and she sat in the passenger seat looking out the window. Suddenly, she tapped my arm. I glanced at her. I couldn't look for too long. Since I was still driving. She signed 2 words. Thank you. I was taken aback. This was the first time she had ever said thank you to me. What for? I steered with one hand and signed quickly with the other. She hesitated for a moment, then signed. Thank you for not making her continue living in that kind of situation. I was silent for a few seconds, then pulled the car over to the side of the road. I turned my head to look at her. Bai Ningbing. She looked at me. I signed. You aren't in that kind of situation. You just can't hear, but you are much clearer-headed than those who can hear. Her eyes seemed to redden, but it might have just been the streetlights. She suddenly turned her head to look out the window. After 10 seconds, she held out her hand and made a gesture. I recognized that gesture. The literal meaning was, are you done yet? Just start the car. I was feeling sleepy, but the tips of her ears were bright red. I restarted the car and didn't say another word, but I seriously couldn't help the smirk spreading across my face. In the days that followed, the way Bai Ningbing and I bickered took a subtle turn. We were still arguing every single day, but the things we were fighting about, they seemed a little different. Take Monday morning, for instance. She kicked the sofa to wake me up. It's getting cold today. Put on something thick before you go out. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not worried about you. If you catch a cold and pass it to me, I'll find it disgusting. On Wednesday night, I got home from working overtime at 10 o'clock. She was sitting on the living room sofa waiting for me, and when she saw me walk in, she jumped up abruptly and started signing at me. Are you trying to kill yourself? It's 10 o'clock already. I wouldn't exactly mind inheriting your assets if you dropped dead, but I don't want any of those beat-up cars of yours. Friday at noon, she sent me a message, not a text on WeChat. It was a video call, and she was signing right into the camera. Don't eat takeout for lunch. I made soup. I'm not doing this because I care about you. It's just that I made too much and couldn't finish it alone. It would be a waste to pour it out, and I hate wasting good soup. I stared at the phone screen for a long time. I typed back a text. You can just admit that you care about me. 3 seconds later, she sent another video. She was giving me the finger, the same old style as always. But I started noticing some details. Before, when she threw things at me, she meant it. A pillow would land square on my face. She didn't hold back at all. Now, she still throws things. But they always miss by just a hair, off by an inch. Every single time, off by an inch. Before, when she cooked, my portion was always smaller than hers. But now, my portion has started to grow. Sometimes, it's even more than what she has. One time, she gave me 2 extra chicken wings. I glanced at her, and she immediately turned her head away and signed. It was just extra. It would be a pity to throw it away. I looked down and ate the wings. They were delicious. And there was another time, even more ridiculous. It was pouring rain that night. I drove home and found out there was a problem at a parking lot quite far from the office. So I had to go deal with it. I was running back and forth until 1 in the morning. I was soaked to the bone. When I opened the door, the entryway light was on. Bai Ningbing was sitting on the steps of the foyer, hugging her knees, wrapped in that blanket of mine. She couldn't hear the door open, but she felt the vibration. She looked up and saw me dripping wet. Her lips pressed tight. She stood up, punched me hard in the chest, and started signing furiously. Did you get as much water in your brain as you did in your clothes? Your hand gestures were too fast, and some parts were a bit blurry. But I understood a little bit. You didn't come back and you didn't even send me a message. Do you think I was waiting for you? I definitely wasn't waiting for you. I just couldn't sleep, because the thunder outside was too loud. She gestured after saying that. Her chest rose and fell, and her eyes were rimmed with red. Then she turned around sharply and dashed into the bathroom. When she came out, she was carrying a bath towel and some dry clothes. She tossed them into my arms and gestured. Go take a shower, hurry up. If you dare to catch a cold, you're paying for your own medical bills. After she finished speaking and gesturing, she turned and went into the team room. The door slammed shut with a loud bang. I stood there in the entryway, clutching the towel and clothes, dripping wet from head to toe. After a long while, I smiled. If you translate that gesture, it basically means, I'm just glad you're back. When I came out after my shower, there was a cup of ginger tea on the living room table. It was hot, and there was a sticky note next to it. She had drawn a donkey on it, and underneath she wrote, drink it and go to sleep. I'm going to scold you again tomorrow. I drank the ginger tea, folded the sticky note, and tucked it into my wallet. Don't ask why, I don't know either. Wait, no, I do know, but I'm not saying it. If I say it, I lose. Things were going well for a while, but then, trouble arrived. Joe Hemming, 35 years old, the head of the Hemming Group. Fang's biggest rival in the industry. This guy has a habit, when doing business, he likes to start with his opponent's private life. At the negotiation table, while others present data, he presents gossip, specifically, about the marriage between me and Bai Ningbing. The outside world has always rumored it to be a strategic, political marriage. Just two people making do. Joe Hemming clearly planned to use this point to cause trouble at a key bidding meeting. The whole thing started over a commercial complex development project. The amount exceeded 100 million. Only two companies were bidding, Fangs and Hemming. The client was a Hong Kong-invested company, owned by a Mr. Huang. He's over 60 and very traditional. He cares deeply about the family image of his business partners. At a private dinner the night before the bidding, Joe Hemming said this right in front of boss Huang, old Huang. Fang Yuan has the capability, sure, but you know. That marriage of his was forced on him by the old man. He married a wife who can't speak. The couple has zero affection for each other. Their home is like a hotel. If he can't even manage his own wife, can you really trust him with this project? This reached my ears, naturally. My source was Zhao Lei. Zhao Lei heard someone from Joe Hemming's side bragging about it while getting a late-night snack and called me immediately. Brother, Joe Hemming is out to get you. He's planning to stir up trouble at tomorrow's bidding dinner by questioning the stability of your family. I sat in the study, tapping my fingers against the desk. What did he say about Bai Ningbing? Zhao Lei relayed the exact words. A wife who can't speak, no emotional connection. Hard to control. My fingers stopped tapping. Got it. I hung up the phone. I went to knock on Bai Ningbing's bedroom door. When she opened it, she was wearing an oversized t-shirt. Her hair was loose, and she was holding a bag of potato chips. Seeing me knocking so late, she frowned. She gestured. Something up? Make it quick, I'm in the middle of a show. There's an important dinner party tomorrow. You're coming with me. Not going. Someone's talking trash about you. She stopped chewing her chips. Who? Joe Hemming? He said we have no feelings for each other, said you. I paused for a second. Said you're someone who can't talk. Not qualified to be the young mistress of the Fang family. She set the chips down. Her expression was calm, but I've known her for 6 months now. I could see what was buried beneath that calmness. She pulled herself together. She gestured. What time? What should I wear? The next evening, the bidding dinner, hosted by Boss Huang. It was at the executive lounge of the Four Seasons Hotel. Aside from the core teams from Fang and Hemming, there were also representatives from several intermediaries. Bai Ningbing wore a black high-necked evening gown. Her hair was swept up, revealing her neck and an exquisite collarbone necklace. When we entered, I noticed several people's gazes linger on her for more than 2 seconds. Joe Hemming was there too, sitting across the round table, dressed in a sharp suit, his hair combed meticulously. Seeing me and Bai Ningbing, he raised his glass in a distant toast. He smiled broadly. Fang, old friend, sister-in-law looks gorgeous today. Rare to see you out and about. I raised my glass in response, my expression neutral. Bai Ningbing didn't say a word, just gave a slight nod. She looked perfectly poised. Halfway through the meal, Joe Hemming did exactly what I expected. He set down his chopsticks, leaned back in his chair, and said, as if casually, Boss Huang, let me tell you something. When it comes to partnerships, sincerity and trust are the most important things. If a man can't even take responsibility for his own family, do you think he can be responsible for a project? Boss Huang just chuckled and didn't take the bait. Joe Hemming continued, I heard that in the Fang household. He glanced at Bai Ningbing. Sister-in-law has some health issues and doesn't usually come out much. This kind of arranged marriage. We all know how it is, right? His choice of words was very calculated. He didn't say it outright, but his meaning was crystal clear. A marriage of convenience, and he's physically impaired. Every word was a trap. I set my glass down. Just as I was about to speak, under the table, a hand pressed onto my thigh. It was Bai Ningbing. She didn't look at me. Her gaze fixed straight ahead. And her left hand started gesturing under the table. The movements were tiny. The angles were so subtle, only I could see them. This guy has a tan line from a wedding ring on his middle finger, but he isn't wearing it today. Is he on a business trip, or did he take it off on purpose? I paused and glanced at Joe Hemming's right hand. Sure enough, there was a clear tan line around the base of his middle finger. Bai Ningbing continued to signal. His titanite is a new model from this year. But his cufflinks are old, he's only keeping up appearances. His watch is the same way. The watch face is a Rolex. But the strap was replaced later, the material is off. The corner of my mouth twitched. She was helping me find the cracks in his armor. Bai Ningbing couldn't hear what Joe Hemming was saying, but she was reading his lips. Her lip-reading skills were better than I imagined. For the next 30 minutes, her left hand didn't stop moving under the table. She was translating every micro-expression and every little movement of his for me. He's lying. He twitched his left eyelid 3 times when he mentioned the quarterly revenue doubling. His assistant is feeding him notes. The guy sitting to his right is checking his phone. Huang Tai's expression just changed. He doesn't believe what Joe Hemming is saying. You can strike now. I waited for 3 seconds, then set down my glass. Joe, old friend, I said with a smile. You say business is all about sincerity. I agree. So let me ask you, regarding your quarterly revenue figures, that 12% growth rate in the second quarter. How exactly was that calculated? Are you still using last year's standard for fixed asset depreciation? Joe Hemming's smile froze for a split second. I didn't give him time to react. I kept going, and another thing. You said family stability is important, so why aren't you wearing your wedding ring today? The whole table went quiet. Joe Hemming's face went through 2 shades of color. First white, then red. Fang, what exactly do you mean by this? My private life. You were the one who started poking fun at my private life first, I said, my tone calm. I'm just keeping you company with some light conversation. Boss Huang cleared his throat from the side. The situation had shifted. The dinner party ended in a tense, awkward atmosphere. As we left, Boss Huang took the initiative to grab my hand. Xiao Fang, come by my office for a chat sometime soon. We'll go over the project details in depth. I nodded. Beside us, Joe Hemming had already climbed into his car with a darkened face. On the ride home, the car was quiet for a long time. I was the first to speak. He used one hand to gesture. You worked hard today. She leaned back against the seat, eyes closed. She leaned back in her chair, eyes closed. Signing it's not hard work at all. Seeing that guy get so speechless because of you, that felt pretty good. How are you so good at reading lips? Did you practice that since you were a kid? You think that just because you can't hear, you don't know anything? 90% of the world's information is written right on people's faces. I fell silent for a moment. Bai Ningbing. Don't you think we're a pretty good match? Her hand paused for a second. Then, she signed a single word. Get lost. But in the reflection of the car window, she was smiling. I discovered Bai Ningbing's secret on a weekend. I was originally heading to the office to settle some accounts. Halfway there, I got a message saying the system maintenance was delayed, so I turned the car around and headed home. When I got home, she wasn't there. There was a key and a sticky note left on the table. It had an address written on it. I hesitated for a moment. And then I went. It was a 2-story building in an old residential complex. Hanging on the door was an inconspicuous sign, Bingbing Sign Language Classroom. The door wasn't closed tight. I stood outside. I peeked through the gap, and there was Bai Ningbing, sitting among a group of children. All of them were hearing-impaired children, 7 or 8 of them. The oldest was no more than 10, the youngest looked only 4 or 5. She was sitting on a low stool, her hands moving in rhythm. Her movements were slow, so patient. She repeated every single gesture 3 times. The children tilted their heads, mimicking her motions. A little girl got a sign wrong, and she turned red with frustration. Bai Ningbing reached out and ruffled her hair. Signing. It's okay. Let's try again. The little girl signed it again. This time she got it right, and Bai Ningbing gave her a thumbs up. The little girl was so happy she started jumping up and down. I stood outside the door and watched for 10 minutes. After I went back, I looked up the situation of this classroom. It was a non-profit aimed at hearing-impaired children from low-income families, providing free sign language lessons and rehabilitation training. The operating budget was almost zero. The rent was being covered entirely by Bai Ningbing's own savings. The teaching materials were all secondhand, and they didn't even dare to turn on the air conditioning. This classroom had been open for 3 years. 3 whole years. In the source of funding section, it said, self-funded by the founder. I closed my laptop, and sat there for a long time. Why did Bai Ningbing marry me? It wasn't because she couldn't find anyone else. It was because she needed the money from this marriage. Her mother had told her that by marrying into the Fang family, the old man would give the Bai family a substantial dowry. She hadn't spent a cent of that money on herself. She had poured it all into this classroom. The next day, I had Zhao Lei use the company foundation's name. To anonymously donate a sum to the Bingbing Sign Language classroom. Enough for her to move from the old complex to a new community activity center. Enough to buy all the equipment they needed, and enough to hire a full-time assistant teacher. The day the transfer went through, Zhao Lei asked me, "You're not going to tell her it came from you?" Not telling her? Why would I? If I tell her, she might just break my legs. Zhao Lei thought about it, and replied, "Fair point. But the truth always comes out." About a week later, that night, I was in the living room going through some files. The bedroom door opened, and Bai Ningbing walked out. She stood right in front of me, her expression impossible to read. She held up her phone. On the screen was an email, an anonymous donation receipt from a foundation. She signed a word. You. I put down my files. "What do you mean, you?" "Don't play dumb," she signed. The donor note says, "To that donkey. Only you call me a donkey." My slip up. I admit it. She put her phone away. She stood there, both hands clenched into fists. Her knuckles tightened, then relaxed. Then she signed a sentence. Her gestures were slow. "I don't need your charity." I stood up and walked over to her. "This isn't charity," I signed back, just as slowly. "One word at a time. You've been calling me names for 6 months. Consider it emotional damages." Her lips trembled. "Faye, just take it. Use it well. Those kids really need it." She lowered her head. I couldn't see her face, but her shoulders were shaking slightly. About half a minute passed. She looked up and signed 2 words. "Thank you." This was only the second time she'd ever said that to me. But unlike before, this time, her eyes were so bright, so piercing, that I didn't dare look at her for too long. I turned to head back to the couch, but she suddenly tugged on my sleeve. I turned around, and her fingers moved, signing a sentence. She was fast this time. "You're still ugly." As soon as she finished the sign, she let go. She ran back into the bedroom, closing the door very gently. She didn't slam it. In the 6 months we've lived together, this was the first time she hadn't slammed the door. I stood in the middle of the living room. My heart was pounding against my ribs, echoing that line. "You're still ugly." I spent the whole night translating that sentence, and no matter how I looked at it, it wasn't just literal. "It's over. I'm completely done for. Fang Yuan, you've fallen hard. You've fallen for a mute wife who uses insults as love letters, and you've fallen completely." Bai Ningbing's style of insulting me started to change. It was a subtle shift. If I hadn't been trading signs with her for nearly 7 months, I never would have noticed. For example, before, "Dress warmly when you go out." It wasn't because she cared. "I don't want you catching a cold and giving it to me." Now, "Dress warmly when you go out." No strings attached. Before, "There's extra soup, drink some." I didn't make it for you, I just couldn't finish it all myself. "The soup is ready now. Come have some." Before, "You used to work so late. If you had died, I wouldn't have even bothered to claim your body. Can you stop coming home so late from now on?" This happened one night when I was out for a work dinner until 11. When I pushed the door open, she was sitting on the sofa. The TV was on, but it was frozen on a pause screen. It was obvious she had fallen asleep waiting and then woke up again. The sound of me coming in woke her up. She rubbed her eyes and saw me. Her hands started moving, but halfway through the gesture, she stopped and then started over again. "Can you stop coming home so late? I didn't mean you'd die. It's not that I don't care about you, it's just... Can you just not stay out so late?" I stood there in the entryway, watching her. She felt uncomfortable under my gaze, suddenly stood up, and hastily signed something else. "The couch is free now, go get some sleep." Then she headed to the bedroom. But as she walked past me, I caught the scent of ginger tea. On the living room table, there was another cup. It was hot, and on the sticky note next to it, it was no longer a donkey or a pig's head. She had drawn a really ugly smiley face. I stared at that smiley face for a while, and then I smiled, and the changes didn't stop there. One day I was napping on the couch, and when I woke up, I found a blanket over me. Another time, she was cooking in the kitchen. As I walked by, she grabbed my arm and tapped the table to get my attention, then handed me a small bowl of ribs. She signed, "Try it." "How is it?" I tasted it. "It's perfect." She nodded, and then signed, "So your mouth is finally useful for something." But as she said it, the corners of her mouth were curving upward. I started testing the waters. One night, I purposely left my phone behind and went out to the supermarket. I was gone for about 20 minutes. When I got back, Bai Ningbing was standing in the doorway, her face pale with anger. As soon as she saw me, she rushed over and pounded on my chest. She signed, "Where's your phone? I called you 17 times. Were you kidnapped? Did something happen to you?" I just went to the supermarket downstairs. Can't you just tell me beforehand?" "I forgot my phone." She signed halfway through, then realized her hands were shaking. She clenched her fists, took a deep breath, and then signed one more sentence. Her movements were very fast. "If you do this one more time, I'm really not going to care about you anymore." When she said she really wouldn't care anymore, her fingers were trembling. I set the supermarket bag down on the floor. I reached out and took hold of her still trembling fingers. She jerked her head up, her eyes wide with shock. I looked down at her, unable to sign back. Since both my hands were busy holding hers, I just said, "Bai Ningbing, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She couldn't hear me, but she was reading my lips. Once she finished, her eyes instantly welled up. Then, she pulled her hand away hard. She signed, "Who needs you to be here? Just stay by yourself. I'm going back to my room." With a snap, the door closed. But it wasn't a slam. Today, she shut it gently. I bent down to pick up the grocery bag, which held her favorite brand of spicy snack strips. There was also a box of chocolates. I placed the snack strips by her bedroom door. I knocked twice and waited for a minute. The door cracked open, and a hand reached out, grabbed the snacks and pulled them inside, then the door closed again. 5 seconds later, a slip of paper slid out from under the door. It read, "Put the chocolate here too." I chuckled and placed the chocolate by the door. It was snatched away as well. That night, I slept on the couch, and for the first time, I felt it was actually quite comfortable. The climax of our story happened at a charity gala, on the day the Bingbing Sign Language classroom opened in its new location. I attended the celebration as a corporate sponsor. The event wasn't huge, but it drew plenty of people from the education and charity sectors. Bai Ningbing stood on stage, wearing a simple white shirt and black trousers, leading the children in a sign language dance. The children's movements weren't perfectly synchronized. Some were fast, others slow. One little boy forgot his moves halfway through and stood there anxiously tugging at his shirt. Bai Ningbing walked over and knelt down, took his hands, and guided him through the motions. The boy smiled, got back in sync, and applause erupted from the audience. Bai Ningbing took a bow with the children. She looked up and caught my eye. Her eyes were shining. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Most of the guests were local entrepreneurs and media. Bai Ningbing wasn't great at socializing. But today, she was trying her best to nod, smile, and thank everyone with sign language. I stood right beside her, acting as her temporary interpreter. Everything was going smoothly, until a voice cut through the crowd. "Tell me, how good can a school run by a deaf person be? She can't even speak herself. Yet she's trying to teach others?" The voice wasn't loud, but the room went quiet for a second. The speaker was a middle-aged man in a loud, floral shirt. He looked like the owner of some small company, likely brought along by someone else. He figured since Bai Ningbing couldn't hear, he could say whatever he wanted. Technically, she couldn't hear, but Bai Ningbing was watching him. She was reading his lips. Deaf. If she can't even speak, how good could it possibly be? She finished reading it word by word, and I saw her fingers tighten slightly. Then she let go. Her expression didn't change at all. But standing right next to her, I could feel her arm trembling ever so slightly. My blood boiled instantly, and I was just about to go over and have it out with that guy. Bai Ningbing reached out and pressed my arm, looking up at me. She gestured 2 words, "Don't move." Then she turned and walked toward that middle-aged man. The whole room went quiet as Bai Ningbing walked up to him. She stopped, and then she opened her mouth. Her voice sounded a bit rusty. The pronunciation wasn't quite standard, because she's rarely spoken in her life. But every single word was articulated clearly. I couldn't hear it. But I'm not stupid. The room was dead silent. The smile on that man's face froze solid. Bai Ningbing continued, saying it word by word. "Every single child I teach has more manners than you." When she finished the last word, her voice was shaking. But her back was straight as a board. She turned around, stopped looking at him, and walked back to my side. There was a 3-second silence, and then the applause exploded. I mean, it really exploded. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was the kind of applause that comes from being truly moved. Some people were wiping their eyes. That guy in the floral shirt shrank into a corner, his face red down to his neck. People around him were looking at him differently now. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Finally, he slunk away. The banquet went on, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. I stood next to Bai Ningbing, watching her put that proper smile back on, continuing to mingle with the guests. She walked over to pick up a water glass from the table. As she passed me, she gestured. "Stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "That look." She paused, as if she were seeing me for the first time. I wanted to say something, but I didn't know how to express what I was feeling in sign language. Because the textbooks never taught that. The banquet ended, once all the guests had left and the venue was mostly packed up. It was just the 2 of us left. She was sitting on a chair in the corner of the hall. The smile finally dropped from her face, and her shoulders slumped. Her nose was red. She gestured a sentence. The motions very light. "Do you think I was too impulsive?" I sat down beside her. "Not at all. You were great. That guy is definitely going to go around telling everyone that a deaf person threw a fit. But that's his problem. It's not yours." She lowered her head, was silent for a moment, and then she gestured a longer message. Her hands moving very slowly. "Fang Yuan, did you know? Ever since I was little, everyone has always looked at me with the same expression. How pathetic. I feel sorry for you. I felt incomplete, like this was all my life would ever be." She looked up at me, gazing straight up. Her hands paused. "Only you. You'd never looked at me with eyes like that before. Whenever you looked at me, I felt like just a regular person. Just a regular person you could argue with. A regular person worth learning sign language for, just so you could cuss me right back. My throat tightened up. I couldn't get a word out. I couldn't even move my hands to sign. She sniffled. Then, she signed something in a flash. Her movements were way too fast. Like she was playing the piano, her fingers dancing in the air. But I understood it. Every single word. I like you. She finished the sign. She whipped her head away instantly, her ear tips so red they looked like they could bleed. I sat there next to her, feeling my heart skip a beat. Then, I reached out and turned her face back to me. Her eyes were still red, tears caught on her eyelashes. They hadn't fallen yet. I looked at her, and slowly, I signed. You already said it once while you were talking in your sleep the other night. She froze. She was completely petrified. 3 seconds later, you're lying. I don't talk in my sleep. I can't even speak at all. You do. You do in your dreams. It was muffled but I could understand you. You were eavesdropping. Your voice was too loud. Don't pin this on me, Fang Yuan. You. Her gestures became frantic. Her face flushed deep red. I grabbed her hands, locking our fingers together. She tugged at them, but couldn't break free. I lowered my head and pressed my lips against the back of her hand. It was so light. She went still, completely motionless. I looked up. I looked at her and signed 3 words. 3 words she had never seen me sign before, and I had never said them either. Her tears finally fell, splashing onto the back of my hand. They were hot. And then she snatched her hand back and punched me hard on the shoulder. Why are you only saying it now? Aren't you saying it now, too? That's not the same. How is it not the same? It just isn't. She stood up. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. After 2 steps, she turned back and signed, fierce as could be. Why aren't you following me yet? I stood up. I caught up to her. When I got to her side, she reached her hand out. She didn't look at me. Her face was turned the other way, but her palm was facing up. Just lying there open. I took it. Her hands are so small, with such slender fingers. But when she's really letting someone have it, those hands are sharper than anyone's tongue. I held her hand as we walked out of the venue, into the late autumn night. The streetlights stretched our shadows long on the pavement, and she suddenly stopped. She turned, and with one hand, she signed something to me. From today on, you don't have to sleep on the sofa anymore. I raised an eyebrow, and she quickly added, You get the guest room. What were you thinking? Nothing much. Thank you. The guest room is fine. She rolled her eyes. Then she signed another sentence, But if you dare to snore again, I'm throwing you back on the sofa. I laughed and squeezed her hand tighter. All right. We just walked on like that, hand in hand. Down the empty street, not saying a word. And we didn't need to. Some things don't ever need to be heard, just feeling them is enough. Later, Zhao Lei asked me, Have you two stopped fighting? I took a glance at my phone. Bai Ningbing had just sent a video message. I tapped it. On the screen, her hands were moving at lightning speed. Bring me some spicy strips when you get off work. It's not because I miss you, it's because you finished off my stash. If you forget, you're sleeping on the balcony tonight. I showed it to Zhao Lei. He was silent for 3 seconds. Man, the kind of love you two have. Others can't learn it, and they wouldn't want to either. I put my phone away and recorded a video reply. I signed to the camera, spicy strips, bought. And the chocolate, bought. But that time you called my brain a bowl of mush. One haven't forgotten about that. I'm keeping score. 3 seconds later, she sent back a video, flipping me off. Grinning so wide her little canine tooth showed. Life is pretty good.